You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John.
These are dark times. Times without hope. What motivates a man to confront the challenges that most of us would run from?
My wife, Marie, was murdered not 2 days ago by the evil that roams these lands.
It is written that a pure-hearted warrior will claim the power of the Lords of Shadow as his own.
You are a good man, Gabriel. You are as God intended. I loved you then, as I love you now.
I have done questionable things.
The mask is a powerful device.
Can it really bring the dead back?
Don't you see, Gabriel?
Just possible.
You can bring her back.
Looking at website stuff, trying to figure out the best tools to use.
Yeah.
I asked
there's
Josh.
so many options.
Yeah. And again, I don't need anything crazy. It's just something that'll be a landing page for both shows and
Right.
good
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
just some static pages or whatever isn't too crazy. I'm sure there's some, like, I don't know, Squarespace or whatever does stuff like that, but I don't know how customizable it is or if you're kind of like stuck in a specific ecosystem.
I was looking at Wix.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be popular. It's kind of like a drag and drop thing, but I'm still learning, even with that, just kind of how everything works and
how they want it to look. Not, yeah.
It's a little overwhelming sometimes, but
yeah.
Don't have loads of cash to spend on it, but got to figure something out.
Yep.
Today, we're going to be talking about Castlevania, Lords of Shadow, John.
Yeah.
It's probably not the Castlevania that everyone would hope for the show, but this one is a special soundtrack, I think. So I wanted to cover this because it's a very in-depth soundtrack, and it was so different from the typical Castlevania game.
Yeah. I mean, I never really... I'm sure I played Castlevania like on the NES or SNES, whatever it came out on, back in the day, but I don't have really any fond memories, and I only probably played the first one, and beyond that, never really played it again. So,
nice.
Yeah, it was interesting to get into this soundtrack because it was wasn't anything I was actually expecting from a Castlevania soundtrack for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting.
Well, Castlevania has been one of my favorite series for as long as I can remember, especially when the first time we got the Super Nintendo was pretty much when it came out. And then we had rented Super Castlevania 4, and that was my first real exposure to Castlevania. And it just kind of sucked me in. There were plenty of side scrollers out there, but this one just had a much different feel. There was no gun. It was a whip and horror themed skeletons and monsters. It was just very, very interesting. And while we're not covering that soundtrack today, Super Castlevania 4's soundtrack is by far one of the greatest things on the Super Nintendo. So so I've been a huge fan ever since then. And this game, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, came out in 2010. And at that point, it had been about, I want to say 8 years since a really good console Castlevania came out. Closer to 5, because they did release a second PlayStation 2 game. But it wasn't as great as the first one, I thought. I was really primed for a new Castlevania, and I didn't even know that I was waiting for it. It just was on the back burner of my mind. You know, I'm always interested in Castlevania. They had released several Nintendo DS games, so I was with those, playing those, and then they announced this game, and I about fell out of my chair. I was so excited. It was the trailer that they first released for this didn't even say it was a Castlevania game.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, I see a whip. That's gotta be, it's Konami. it's got to be Castlevania. And then when they finally released a slightly longer trailer with some voiceover work and music, and I was like, oh my God, there's the title. And it looked so good. It was, the
Not
world was realized in a way that Castlevania had never been realized. Okay. So I was just super excited. And, you know, from the trailer, you could tell all the different locations, forests, towns, wintry cliffs, frozen lakes, that kind of thing. Of course, the castle, but my heart was aflutter with excitement for this game. And
I was going to ask, had any other, because I know the originals obviously didn't have a ton of story built into them because it was a side scroller for the NES and SNES. But the later games, did they have a lot of the exposition story built in? Or?
I think, I want to say once Rondo of Blood came out, that was a TurboGrafx game or PC Engine game. And that's when they started getting more story focused. And then, of course, Symphony of the Night, which everyone knows about for PlayStation 1, that was the first foray into the RPG elements of Castlevania, and thus was created the whole Metroidvania subgenre.
Yeah.
That was focused on story. It was minimal, but it was still there. And then with each subsequent release, they really stuck to that formula, the Metroidvania style. And yeah, they had a lot more story than the first few games did.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, I was interested and excited to find out that it was a reboot of the entire series. And it eventually it turned out to be just like a compact thing. It was its own thing. It was 3 games. Didn't blow everyone's mind. So it kind of stopped there after the 3rd game, and that's fine. But yeah, this was just a very intense thing for me, because even from the trailer, I was immediately taken by the music, and what I was seeing and hearing complemented each other so well that I could tell that Konami and the team they hired to do this, Mercury Steam, they were taking Castlevania to Lord of the Rings status. There was a lot more depth to it, a lot more locations, scarier monsters, more intense battles. I think I've stated this before. I can't really remember. I've always loved Castlevania, but they took it in a much more Japanese anime route.
Okay.
From Rondo of Blood on, which is fine. It works. it just lacked that original horror element to me.
The grittiness and
yeah, it wasn't quite as focused on the darkness of Castlevania.
Yeah.
It was a little bit flashier, a little bit
tough to be gothic horror when it's animated.
And that's perfect because the gothic I felt was missing from that after Rondo of Blood. So it was very, very awesome to see this trailer and have those elements come back in such a grand way. So I was very excited for it. And with this being a reboot, it looked to be just bringing those truly European Gothic looks back, and it appeared to take itself much more seriously than the series ever had. So
yeah,
my buddy Brett and I were waiting with bated breath. And
was it good?
It was good. I liked it. I got to be honest. The game itself on 360 was, I think, 2 discs long, which is pretty unheard of for the time, except outside of your Final Fantasies and stuff like that. But yeah, the story was long. It was lengthy. It was deep. It was exciting. The world around this game was so well fleshed out, I thought. And the combat was so exciting. So exhilarating. I think it's sitting at like a 70-something% online.
Oh, really?
I'm like, I would give it closer to an 80. I'm not saying it's the most amazing thing ever, but I had a lot of fun with it. And you can't really not enjoy a game where Patrick Stewart is one of the main characters.
Awesome.
And Jason Isaacs plays the last boss. I'm like, this is fantastic.
That's great.
So, brief rundown of the story. Essentially, you play Gabriel Belmont. He is a new addition to the Belmont clan. He's a holy warrior whose wife has been killed by the forces of evil. The earth has a relationship with the heavens, but that has been upended by the Lords of Shadow, who have taken control of earth, and thus all the dead cannot make their journey to heaven. So, unable to accept the fate for his wife and avenge her death, he sets out on a mission to kind of right this terrible wrong. And along the way, he meets several people and creatures who aid or hinder his progress. And he comes to meet another Brotherhood of Light warrior named Zobek, and that's Patrick Stewart. Mm-hmm. He actually tells him about this relic called the God Mask. And if he can kind of collect the mask's pieces and reassemble it, he can actually bring his wife Marie back to life. So that becomes a focal point for the story. And it's all about vengeance and true love, that kind of thing. So it does share some threads with the original Castlevania storyline, where Leon Belmont was the guy who was trying to save his wife. And so there are similarities there. Yeah, it was a grand story with an exceptional direction and vision. The game itself was meaty, and it was just a pleasure to experience. So above all, I want to say that the music just warmed my heart. And this was the first thing I had ever heard by a composer named Oscar Araujo. He was the composer for this game, and he did a phenomenal job. With all the locations in this game, the darkness of the story and the themes, the intensity of the battles, the score had to really be in the pocket. And simply put, I think this is a film score. It's on that level for me.
Yeah, listening to it, it was incredible how vast this soundtrack is for a Castlevania game. I mean, it would fit right in there with a Lord of the Rings style soundtrack, very epic, very orchestral. This is a bit more morose and ominous because of the nature of the story, but I think overall it is a really well done, well put together soundtrack that elevated probably a story or a franchise into a more serious realm than it had been before.
Yeah, he took that role on creating something to match the scale of this game, and just from the design of the game, the fact that it was coming together in such a large, I think it was close to 20 chapters, which was pretty decent size. And I think the soundtrack really lends itself to each location, and there is a focus on battles because that's a majority of the game, obviously.
Yeah.
But I want to say that the locations, even the ambience that's accompanies certain areas, I think there's just a, like you said, morose feeling to it. There's a through line of sadness and desperation in this album, and I think that's largely due to the story of Gabriel trying to avenge his wife's death.
Right.
There's her murder, I guess, but I just think it was it had to be, I want to say, intimidating to come up with a soundtrack with something that was so loved by so many people, and they're redoing it. They're starting over, and not everyone's on board for that. Right. So to come out of the gates with something this epic sounding, I guess, is pretty ballsy, and it had to be perfect. And I think he nailed the soundtrack. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, one of the kind of earlier songs in it that really struck me was the Swamp Troll, which is just has this great, ominous beginning that just kind of builds and builds, and you get this beautiful horn and these low horns that are just kind of setting this baseline of danger, of dread that is around you. The whole tone of the entire track is pretty frantic. I imagine this is a boss or mini boss, the Swamp Troll. And in this whole song, it's a 4-minute song or 5-minute song that has like a full 3-act structure. You have this really bombastic beginning, kind of a lull in the middle, and then it just comes back into full force at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those horns really play a prominent part. There's a strong franticness to this song because it is a battle, but there is such a level of terror along with it because this is a big beast that you're coming in contact with. One of many, I should say. Yeah. They take the battles in this game to, I want to say, what is that game?
God of War? Is that what it...
Kind of God of War, like where they're absolutely massive. This boss is not massive, but anyway, whatever. Basically, they capture the scale of the battles, and this one is, while it's a pretty normal enemy, but it's a boss. It's still got this feeling of absolute terror to it, and this monster is extremely dangerous, and those horns really sell that.
Yeah, I love the towards the end of the song, maybe you've kind of got broken past the hardest part of the monster, and you get this triumphant chorus and trumpets, about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the song. Just kind of guide you towards the end, give you that second boost of energy to finish off this monster. It's a really great building track.
Araujo is very good at the build-ups, and throughout this album, there's a lot of that, and even, I would say, Lords of Shadow 2, there's several songs that are like that, but it really, really gives you that boost of energy while you're playing the game. Just listening to the music, you're like, I feel it now, I'm in the pocket. But, while the game is obviously heavy on combat, a lot of the soundtrack is too. There are tracks that I want to mention that they're just full of beauty and grace with the visuals. Waterfalls of Agartha is one such track that I have to mention simply to show the dynamics of the album. we'll probably cover more tracks that are on the opposite side of the spectrum, kind of like the Swamp Troll. But Waterfalls is actually a remix of one of the sections from the Super Castlevania 4 soundtrack. This track directly references it, but with the assistance of real instrumentation and the addition of even more instruments, Araujo was really able to flesh it out and still make it his own. It's really one of the most beautiful moments on this album, and although the platforming in this section was a little bit dangerous, I really didn't mind it because it was so elegant to listen to.
Yeah.
I think, as we talked about a little bit ago, the game deals with some dark themes, not just because it's a Castlevania game. It has more than enough blood and monsters, but my point is that there are games where death of a character means more than in other games. And if someone dies, that for a video game, that's to be expected. But this game took itself a little seriously, and the death of your wife, who, if I recall, is actually dead before the game starts, it even that casts a shadow and mood over the album and the game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sadness throughout the album because this is not an adventure in the normal sense of the word. It's a mission of love. So with a song like Waterfalls of Agartha, it's very serene, it's beautiful, but it also carries a deep undertone of sadness and despair. And it's just a beautiful track, and I love listening to it. You're platforming during this section, you're exploring the area, and it's just a joy to listen to. But I wanted to highlight it because it is definitely on the other side of the spectrum from the typical battle themes that, pepper the album.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would put it that and Maze Gardens kind of in the same category. I really like this one is really beautiful. Has that swelling tone to it. It's more of a song, I think, of either loss or sadness. I think the other side of maybe the slower songs is Maze Gardens, which is something, from what I can tell, something epic is happening in whatever scene this is playing in, because it just seems like it's a angelic, almost heavenly track, with a bass line of that kind of melodramatic side. So there are these swelling moments where it seems like you're talking to some sort of deity or god or angel, but the world around you is still this morose, sad place. But it's a really beautiful and kind of, it's not as a straightforward of a song as maybe the Waterfalls is. It has these interesting lulls and then build up and then stop, and then it goes on to another part of the song, and it's really interesting.
Right. And those vocals that kind of come in, they add this sense of, I don't know, sadness. But I mean, we already talked about the sadness, but I think there's these kind of short wailings that the choir does that really give it a different beauty to it that I really like.
Yeah, very haunting.
Yeah. Now, the last small track that I wanted to mention, we're on this kind of lull in the soundtrack, is actually Belmont's theme. And I wanted to highlight this track simply because with a series like Castlevania, you would expect, given the history of the games and the killer tracks the series is known for, you might expect a high octane and bombastic piece. But however, what I really love about this is that it's short, it's to the point, and it's incredibly mournful. It's got strife written all over it, and maybe even some darkness and uncertainty.
Yeah.
When you listen to it, you just notice the delicate strings as they provide that main melody, and the flute that, kind of spices it up a little bit. It carries such a weight to it, even though the instrument itself is very light and fluttering. There's dread here, there's pain and sorrow. And this song just highlights why I'm drawn to the game. The tones here are very tragic and unfortunate, but there's such strength to keep fighting underneath them.
Yeah.
Gabriel's will is to do justice for his dead wife, to be a hero, not for glory, but for what's right.
Right.
And I think this song it was so unexpected for this to be the main character's theme, because it's got this sadness to it, this despair, with hints of joy.
Yeah.
Because the horns in the background are those moments where you're building your strength, you're finding the will to keep going, and it's very contrasting to the rest of the instruments, which I thought was really interesting, because most of this song, it just feels very defeating.
Yeah.
And there's just so much tragedy behind his character that, he's doing what he can to right the wrongs in the world, and he's fighting almost a losing battle. And that's what this comes across as. And it's very, very touching, I think.
Yeah, it's a great, almost subtle theme song for a main character, in a way that really does bring across the whole story of Belmont and what he's trying to do. The horns kind of give you that bit of hope that you're going to actually do what you set out to do. Because imagine that a lot of, this game in general, the way the story is, you're fighting gods and you're fighting these lords of shadow. Like, these things are generally beyond mortal men, and to have the hope to actually accomplish what you want to accomplish is difficult, and it has to come from somewhere. And I think that's what that song really encapsulates.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful track. I was impressed that they chose to do something like this for the main character's theme. It was just it just cemented that belief that, okay, this is an actually serious game. They're trying to make things much more believable, I guess is the word, and a little bit more down to earth.
Right.
The feelings that they're trying to provoke here are just the real feelings. You don't feel a lot of these emotions when you listen to other Castlevania tracks, other soundtracks. This one just struck very differently. Now, on the other side of that coin, we go back into the bombastic songs, and directly after Belmont's theme is a song called Final Confrontation. And this is the battle with the big baddie of the game, Jason Isaacs. It is your typical action game fight with some cinematics in between major health markers, right? So once you deplete his health so much, there's a cinematic and the fight continues in a different way. It's incredibly epic. I don't want to spoil anything, but I suppose it's been long enough. You fight Satan. Satan. I'm going to say it one more time. You fight Satan. It doesn't get much more metal than that, John.
Yeah, pretty metal.
So, albeit a very man-to-man fight, as Satan appears as a muscular man, he's incredibly strong, and Gabriel is definitely in for a fight. But all the while, this track is blaring underneath, and you are definitely playing to the music. The music itself tracks with the cinematics, so when it gets slower and more trudging, those are where the cinematics take place. Those are where the battle takes a turn against you. Satan has a new power he's unleashing. And then there are those second strength moments where Gabriel comes back, he finds his inner strength. When the crescendo comes in with a sudden burst of strings, Gabriel is really unleashing his true power, and he's turning the tides against Satan, that kind of thing. But the way the soundtrack is incorporated into the game makes it very cinematic, very intense. You're feeling every moment of this fight. You are on the edge of your seat, not to be corny, but it's just an extremely fun fight. And if I recall correctly, most of the battles are very much like that, where the music tracks with what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
And so if you play your cards right and you do well, you can actually just listen to the track the way it actually is written and go through the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful time, and this fight was just so fantastic. I had such a good time with it. This track itself, with all the blaring horns, is that beautiful inner strength of Gabriel just coming out when he's kind of been downtrodden this entire game. He's been beaten. Things aren't what they were told they would be. He's leading this very tragic story, and he's finally coming face to face with the evil of the world, and he's about to purge it. So it just, you feel that in the song, and it's just exciting to listen to.
There's not a ton of like of the morose or sad in this song. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is very bombastic, in like you said, the triumphant, almost triumphant, near triumphant horns that play in opposition of the chorus and the strings, that, and some of the low horns that I think are the bad side of this fight. You can tell that there's this struggle between the two sides, and it's just a great finale, epic battle soundtrack that you would expect in a movie, and it's great.
Yeah, when those strings come in towards the end, you kind of feel the ramping up of the instruments, and then it crescendos with this flurry of violins and the chanting, the choir behind it. Mm-hmm. It's so strong, so powerful that I get shivers many times throughout this album, and this song has a lot of it. It's just so grandiose, it's so powerful, and then as the song really closes in on the end, Gabriel's got his second strength, and the just sweeping orchestral song just comes over. The timpani's going nuts. The chorus is singing louder and louder as the song comes to a close, and it's just so awesome. Yeah. I get a lot of joy out of this song.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I mean, the game as a whole is just different from what I was expecting, and it really brought me something that I was emotionally connected to in story, gameplay, and music. So overall, it's just, there was a lot of excitement going into this game before it came out, and what I will say with Zero Hyperbole is what really had me replaying the trailer over and over was the music. It was a very short trailer, but it had some snippets, obviously, and what it was paired with really gave me great feelings. I was ecstatic to see Castlevania come back with the 3D title it really deserved. They had tried to bring Castlevania into the third dimension for so long, and they had some success, but it was pretty limited. When I picked it up at midnight, I was giddy. I went home to play it, and the rest is history. It was just such a fantastic action game. Great story. The voice acting was phenomenal. And again, how can you go bad with Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, I know.
Jason
Seriously.
Isaacs, Robert Carlyle. I mean, come on.
Great.
The last thing I'll say is this is definitely a game you want to play with headphones because of Araujo's score. You know, it's so grand and so utterly beautiful, both in action and subtlety, that it deserves intricate attention while you're playing. And I highly encourage people to just go buy it. You can buy the CD on Amazon. There are extended versions online. Just go listen to it. Yeah, go and get it. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect when it came to Castlevania, because even the original, I can't. If I heard it, I'd probably recognize it, but I can't think of it in my head. Mm-hmm. And if you were to, rather than Castlevania, you were to pitch me a epic battle between, you know, the heavens and earth and Satan and you know, all that, you know, well, that comes with it, I would probably picture at the top of it this kind of soundtrack. It's very grand, epic, orchestral soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And it definitely didn't disappoint, and you know, it was a great listen. Really was a soundtrack that you could put on and really pump yourself up to go do something, or like you're working on something. Like it's definitely a playable album. Like it's not like you're just gonna you know, we only would listen to it just for, you know, just for reminiscing. I mean, I think this is an album you can put on and listen to. Oh, just absolutely. Like any other.
Yeah, I can't wait for them to release this on vinyl. I'll be all over that.
Yeah.
No stirrings of that yet, but I'm hoping it comes. But I do want to say this was actually a 120-piece orchestra that he employed for the soundtrack.
The Bratislava, right? Orchestra?
Yeah. And I believe when the second game came around, he won an award for most instruments used on a soundtrack or something. So for this, he was nominated by the International Film Music Critics Association for Breakout Composer of the Year. And he won Best Original Score for a Video Game or Interactive Media.
He deserves it.
Yeah. I mean, if this is his first album, then Jesus Christ.
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's pretty good. So yeah, go listen to it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wonderful time. As John said, you don't need to know the source material to really enjoy this album. If you're a fan of classic symphony or just a grand sounding album with beautiful strings and thundering timpani and blaring horns, this is your album. It's got so much emotion behind it. You can kind of paint your own picture while you're listening to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this album 10 combat crosses out of 10.
I mean, even without the nostalgia, I think for me, this is a 10 stakes to the heart out of 10. This is for sure great.
Awesome. But yeah, go listen to it. It's a fantastic time. And yeah, John, if you would like to say goodbye to the wonderful people, please do so.
I'll see you in hell.
In hell. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast, for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple
We're not doing that.
We certainly did
Never
not.
mind.
Try
Scratch
again.
that. Scratch
Check
that.
it out. Look it up. Look it up.
John?
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the
Yeah,
podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.